A few weeks ago, it was announced that Mel Tucker would no longer be the head coach at Colorado State due to some allegations which I will not get into. This is, however, very unfortunate, as just 2 years ago, he seemed like he was the next big-time head coach in college football. However, today we will be discussing some of his potential replacements. The first guy I want to talk about is Duke head coach Mike Elko. Duke is better known for basketball than football, and has never really had much football history. Other than winning an ACC title under Steve Spurrier, the Blue Devils have always been average to below average. Which is why it was such a shocker that Mike Elko managed to win 9 games in his very first year with the Blue Devils. And early in his second year, he is already 4-1, and the Blue Devils had a big blowout win over a top 10 Clemson team in the first game of the season. And currently are ranked number 12 in the country. Elko has had a lot of experience coaching football for over 20 years and was the defensive coordinator for both Notre Dame and Texas A&M. So he has a lot of ties and experiences across the country. I personally think this would be a great hire. The only question is, would Elko leave Duke for Michigan State? Now the next guy I want to talk about is Jonathan Smith. Jonathan Smith is the head coach at Oregon State, and initially it took him 3 years to get the program up as it was in a dumpster fire, but he's managed to turn it around there. And 2022 took Oregon State to its third 10-win season in program history. And as of right now, Oregon State is currently 5-1. I think this would be a good hire. However, there are two things to note. That one, Jonathan Smith is more of a West Coast guy and hasn't really had any experience in the Midwest. And two, Jonathan Smith is an alumni at Oregon State. However, with Oregon State moving down to the group of 5 and having less money for facilities and other kinds of things, he could maybe want to leave for better pay and better facilities. Another guy that a lot of people are talking about is Lance Leipold at Kansas. Leipold has managed to turn Kansas football around, as back in 2022, he took the Jayhawks to their first bowl game since 2008, and as of right now, they are currently 5-1 and ranked. I personally do not think this would be a good hire. Yes, he's managed to turn Kansas football around, but they're not exactly a powerhouse. Yeah, they're 5-1, but I still don't feel like he's really been there that long or has really had much experience. Yes, he's done great and will continue to build a good program at Kansas, but still, I personally don't think he would be a good hire. Another really big target that Michigan State has is Bill O'Brien. Of course, most of you more than likely know who he is, but in case you don't, he rebuilt Penn State football and turned him into a powerhouse before leaving to go coach in the NFL for the Houston Texans. He had some pretty good teams with Houston, but unfortunately, due to some bad flaws with the organization, his program eventually fell apart and he was eventually fired, but did become a great offensive coordinator for Alabama for 2 years. Then he eventually left to become the New England Patriots offensive coordinator under Bill Belichick. I think this would be a great hire. However, due to him going back to the NFL to be an offensive coordinator, I feel like indicates that he wants to go back to being a head coach in the NFL at some point, opposed to being a head coach at the college level. Another coach that's been getting a lot of attention for the Michigan State head coaching job is Brian Hartline. Hartline is currently the offensive coordinator at Ohio State and was promoted from passing coordinator after last season. I personally don't know how I would feel about this hire. Yeah, he's done good so far and is not too far from Michigan, of course, so he clearly knows the area in the Midwest, but still, he hasn't even finished a year as the offensive coordinator. He's also had some off-the-field issues as well, which I will not get into, but still, I feel like this is really risky, and I just don't think this would be a great hire. Somebody else that a lot of people keep talking about is Liberty head coach Jamey Chadwell. Before being the head coach at Liberty, Jamey Chadwell built Coastal Carolina into a Group of 5 powerhouse. As his second year as the head coach, he had an undefeated regular season record, won the Sun Belt, and managed to beat ranked BYU and Zach Wilson, as well as being ranked Louisiana Lafayette. And then the very next year in 2021, he led the Chanticleers to an incredible 11-2 season with the school's first ever bowl win. And then after another great season at Coastal in 2022, he then left to take the head coaching job at Liberty, where so far he has started out 5-0. Chadwell, although I wouldn't think he would be a bad hire, still isn't the guy that I would go for. He hasn't had any experience in the Midwest and is more of a Southeastern guy. And although he's done great at both Coastal and his 1 year at Liberty, I still don't know how that would translate, hiring a guy who had just left the Sun Belt and now 1 year in the American to the Power 5. Another guy that I want to talk about is Toledo head coach Jason Candle. Candle has had a lot of success at Toledo, where he's gone 59-33. He took over for Matt Campbell after he left for Iowa State and has been the head coach since 2016. He knows the area clearly as he's a Midwestern guy, and he wouldn't be the first time Michigan State hired a head coach at Toledo who had success. In case you didn't know, Nick Saban was once the head coach at Toledo before leaving to take the Michigan State head coaching job. Another guy who a lot of people have talked about is Charles Huff, who is the head coach at Marshall. Huff has done great at Marshall ever since he was hired after the end of the 2020 season. And at one point in time, he was actually the running backs coach at Michigan State. He also coached running backs at both Penn State and Alabama. So he does have ties to the program, as well as the Midwest as a whole and other parts of the country. Another name that has gotten a lot of attention is LSU defensive coordinator Matt House. House is in his second year as the defensive coordinator for the Tigers and has had pretty good defenses. He was also the defensive coordinator for both Pitt and Kentucky, and was even a graduate assistant at Michigan State at one point. So he does have ties to the program. Another name that has surfaced during the Michigan State head coaching search is Colorado offensive coordinator Sean Lewis. Lewis is in his first year with the Buffalo with Deion Sanders and has done well so far and has managed to build a great offense at Colorado. He actually used to be the head coach at Kent State, where he managed to build a program and had a lot of success, which was the most success Kent State had ever had in its football program's history. Believe it or not, he actually resigned from Kent State to take the offense coordinator job at Colorado. The next guy that I want to talk about is Willie Fritz. Fritz has managed to turn Tulane football into a powerhouse, as last year they went 12-2 and won the AAC championship. And back in 2018, he managed to get the Green Wave to their first bowl game since 2008 and had their first bowl win since 2002. Before he was at Tulane, he was actually the head coach at Georgia Southern for 2 years, where his first year he managed to take the Eagles to a 9-3 record and an 8-0 conference record, winning the Sun Belt. The only thing that I will say about Fritz is that his success isn't always consistent, and it's kind of up and down. The next guy I want to talk about is Mike Tressel. Mike Tressel is currently the defensive coordinator for Wisconsin and used to be the defensive coordinator for Michigan State, along with being a lower-level assistant, and was also the defensive coordinator for Cincinnati for 2 years after he left Michigan State. Tressel was also the interim head coach after Mark D'Antonio resigned. He has ties to the program and has coached at multiple schools across the Midwest. However, I still don't know if he's ready to be a head coach yet. Another guy who's gotten some attention is Cade Womack. Cade Womack is the head coach at South Alabama, and last year, back in 2022 in his second year, He took the Jaguars to a 10-win season, and he was also the defensive coordinator at Indiana before becoming the head coach at South Alabama. And it seems that Indiana football has ironically fallen off since he left. I really don't think this will be a great hire. Although last year he won 10 games, one season doesn't mean anything. As of right now, they're 3-3, which isn't bad, but not great. Although they could definitely turn this into a great year, and it's too early in the season to really tell. Still, I just don't think that this would be a great hire. Hiring a group of 5 head coach this early after one big season. The next guy I want to talk about is not a guy that is on most other lists, but that is Dave Clawson. Clawson has been a great head coach for Wake Forest and has managed to turn them from the Vanderbilt of the ACC to one of the bigger powers of the ACC. He actually used to be the head coach at Bowling Green, so he does have some ties to the Midwest. I personally think out of all these hires that Bill O'Brien would be the best. He built Penn State, and he had some pretty good teams with the Texans, but like I said earlier, him going back to the NFL to be an offensive coordinator indicates that he does not want to be a head coach at the college level. So the only thing is, could Michigan State manage to get him back to the collegiate level as a head coach? I think the second best guy would be Mike Elko. However, would Elko be willing to leave Duke to go to Michigan State? I personally doubt it. I personally think it will be either Jason Candle or Charles Huff. Both of these guys have been great head coaches at the group of 5 level. Both have ties to the Midwest. But anyway, that's all for this video. Who do you think will be the next Michigan State head coach? As always, please like, subscribe, and share this with your friends.